how do you topple an autocratic leader that has entrenched his power for 16 years? Does it need the fire of revolution, or can it happen at the ballot box? Can the fear of war across the border decide an election? Or is corruption and stagnation the greater evil? These are the questions shaping Hungary's most consequential elections since the fall of communism, where pro-Russian Prime Minister Viktor Orban faces his greatest challenge yet. Upstart young populist Peter Magyar has made it his mission to break Orban's grip on power. In 2 years, he has united the opposition and taken his campaign across the country. But against a rigged system ready to use all the tricks in the Russian playbook, he was always going to be up against it. Taking the 24-hour train journey from Kyiv, I've come to cover these historic elections. Orban has brought relations with Kyiv to their lowest point ever, with the veto of a €90 billion EU loan for Ukraine, making the result of this election pivotal for the future of the war. Before we continue, I just want to take a quick minute to remind those who might be new to our channel that everything the Kyiv Independent does, from field reports like this, frontline content, news and explainers, investigations, is all made possible not by billionaires, but by you, our readers and viewers, and those who make small monthly contributions. If you want to support independent journalism in Ukraine, then please consider joining our community by clicking the link in the description below. Now back to the story. Now, I've arrived here in central Budapest, and usually every time I come to this city, which I do call home, the first thing I notice and I look for when I arrive is what is the latest government Fidesz paid for scare campaign that they're putting on the Hungarians. And this has gone on for a lot longer than Russia's war against Ukraine. It was the case back during the migrant crisis, when it was all about George Soros and Brussels trying to destroy Hungarian culture. But of course now there is one man at the center of all of these posters, and I think we have found him. Let's have a look here. Let's stop them. Only Fidesz. That is the message in that poster, which put side by side the opposition leader Peter Magyar with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Never mind the fact that Magyar has not really said anything about Ukraine, but that is the main and only real message of Orban's campaign agenda at this point. Simply fear, simply the fear of association. For me, these elections are not just another event to cover, they are personal. My mother is from northeastern Hungary, and although I mostly grew up in Australia, I lived in Budapest on and off over the years. Being and speaking Hungarian were always a big part of my identity growing up, and the shared history of revolution and Russian occupation was why I first got interested in Ukraine. About a year ago, I was at a flea market just outside Budapest, and I found something that filled my heart with warmth, you could say, especially given the current context. It was a revolutionary flag. This is from the 1956 Hungarian Revolution, and it has a hole in the middle because that's where the emblem of the Socialist People's Republic of Hungary was. And that was cut out by the revolutionaries. And with that, this flag became the symbol of that time and of the rebellion against tyranny and against communism and against Moscow. Now, I'm not sure if it's authentic, although it does look a little bit old and the hole looks pretty hastily cut out. But whether it is or not, it's just such an important reminder for me to have in my home about how Hungarians are not pro-Russian. In fact, they have a strong heritage of standing up to Moscow even when the odds are not in their favor. My first stop begins with another train trip, but not before picking up some reading material. So just jumping on the train, I picked up one of the free newspapers that they give out in public transport in a lot of European cities. So let's see what it tells us about the media landscape in Hungary. Straight off the bat, we see the day's failure. Peter Magyar. There's going to be a big war. What could that be? Further down, we have something from Orban. Hungary needs a government that will look after Hungarian families, make sure groceries are affordable and utilities are cheap. Further down, we have a clearly government-ordered poll published, which is meant to breed distrust in the potential new Prime Minister. They ask, when he takes decisions, what do you want the new Prime Minister to prioritize? On one hand, you have a lovely big list of Hungary's peace, economic prosperity, and protection against inflation. We love that. And here, anti-corruption fight. Magyar is associated with the anti-corruption fight, maybe because Hungary has become the European Union's most corrupt country. This newspaper is an example of how Orban and his Fidesz party have used the media as a big part of their soft authoritarianism, whereas unlike a normal dictator, they haven't been arresting or poisoning their opposition. They haven't even been rigging the elections that much, just a little bit of cheating on the sidelines. But instead, they've used the media, the independent media, the private media, to create a completely uneven playing field that is just dominated by government propaganda. The problem is when the people have enough and when they see more and more evidence of outright corruption from the government, that's when this just simply doesn't work anymore. The destination, a small village outside the capital, where Magyar and his Tisza party are holding one of their last rallies after 2 years spent crisscrossing the country.
Na, én azért fogok a Tiszára szavazni, mert engem borzalmasan zavar a korrupció. És amit soha nem bocsátok meg ennek a kormánynak, az, hogy összeúszítja az embereket és az egészségügyet. Az embereknek az úszításból van elege, szerintem leginkább. Legalábbis nekem, magamból indulok ki, meg a környezetemből. Tehát az, hogy semmi más nem hallok a kormánytól, csak hogy Ukrajna, Soros, Brüsszel, mi poloskák vagyunk, stb. Ukrajna honvédő háborút vív, az, hogy a kormány ennyire orosz párti, az is gusztustalan, mert nem vélet, az én szüleim 56-ban sérültek, úgyhogy hagyjuk ezt a dolgot, jó?
The loudest voice at the rally is that of 15-year-old Tibor. He cannot vote yet, but having lived all his life under Orbán's rule, he feels he's seen enough.
Most ugye gyerek vagyok, nem tudok a Tiszára szavazni, viszont azt szeretném, hogy itt vagyok, és akkor ezzel is még egyel több ember lesz itt, és ezzel is láthatják azok az emberek, akik ezt az adást nézik, vagy akik tudják, hogy itt mi történik, hogy egyel több ember van itt. És látjuk, hogy mekkora erő van ebben az országban, az emberekben, hogy összefogunk a rendszerváltásig. Egy életű országot szeretnék igazából ennyi. Nem akarok elmenni, azt szeretném, itt akarok maradni, hogy itt legyen családom, és hogy jó legyen minden. Hogy olyan legyen, elérjük egy olyan fejlettségi szintre, mint külföldi országokban. Tehát például, ha már Románia is beelőzött minket, akkor most azért ez elmond valamit a Fideszről, hogy, és azért ott is voltak dolgok, tehát hogy remélem, hogy ez változni fog. Szerintem támogatnunk kéne Ukrajnát, és most mondhatnánk azt, hogy most miért támogatjuk Ukrajnát, mert hogy akkor meg vezérbe sorolál Magyarország a mélyeneket, ugye ezzel jönnek a fideszes emberek. Viszont itt van mögöttünk a NATO. Tehát Zelenszkijről akármit lehet mondani, de mégis ott van, nem ment el, védi a hazáját.
Before long, the man himself arrives.
Szép jó reggelt kívánok, Szőszak, Hogy ilyen korán, ilyen sokan itt vagytok. Ő 37 évvel később tulajdonképpen behívja az oroszokat, a GRU, az orosz katonai titkos szolgálat ügynökeit, akik itt tevékenykednek most Magyarországon, azzal a küldetéssel jöttek, hogy befolyásolják a választásokat, hogy balhét keltsenek, hogy valamilyen balhé legyen. Én arra kérek mindenkit, nagyon határozottan, hogy ne üljünk föl semmilyen provokációnak. Mi két éve megmutatjuk Magyarország békés, emberséges arcát. Talpra magyar, héja haza, itt az idő, most vagy soha. Rabok legyünk vagy szabadok, ez a kérdés választhatott. A magyarok istenére esküszünk, hogy rabok tovább nem leszünk. Legyen így, köszönjük szépen!
So with this rally behind us, we have really entered the home stretch of what has been a campaign for over 2 years to hold rallies of Peter Magyar and the Tisza party from all across Hungary, including in very small towns and villages like this one outside Budapest. But first and foremost, you can feel this atmosphere that at this point the wave of the movement is unstoppable. You could hear Peter Magyar really evoking the vibe of previous revolutions, of Hungarian poets back in the revolution in 1848 and in 1956, and saying that this is just as important a moment for Hungary as those back then. But there is also nerves, there is also fear about the potential for a Russian provocation, the potential for election falsification. He was directly addressing his supporters, saying to watch out and don't fall for any of these tricks coming up to these crucial elections. On the way back, I speak to 2 students currently at university in the Netherlands. For them, like for many young Hungarians, the election could decide whether or not they see a future for themselves back at home.
We study in the Netherlands, but we think it's really important to come home and vote, because part of the reason that we went abroad was the situation back here in Hungary, and of course it affects us also, not just through the system's effect on us, but also on our family, our friends, and the country that we love. So the biggest threat to Hungary isn't Ukraine. If anything, it would be Russia, who is currently interfering in the elections.
There's people who just only fear Ukraine, and they cannot imagine that Ukraine is actually not the threat to Hungary, but they are just protecting themselves.
So 2 days before election night, and this evening is where everyone who's had enough of Orban Viktor is gathering. What's interesting about this event, it's a concert, it's a so-called regime change concert, rendszerváltás, and this is the word that the Hungarians use for the end of the Cold War, the end of Russian occupation, and the beginning of proper democracy, which has now been almost lost again. So there's a lot of symbolism in these words, and the interesting thing about this event is that it's not organized by Tisza. It's not about Peter Magyar or about a certain brand of opposition politics. It's just a concert with some musicians and a very young crowd here. Hungarians are out in force, filling Hero Square like I've never seen before. Here, as one artist after another performs highly politicized tracks, the will for change and energy to achieve it is felt from all directions.
Én itt szeretnék maradni, akár tovább tanulni, akár itt élni és dolgozni, és egyszerűen csak teret szeretnék adni annak, hogy én más gondolok, és nagyon-nagyon sok fiatal más gondol, mint amit a mostani rendszerben akár Orbán Viktor, akár a további miniszterek gondolnak, és én azért vagyok kint, hogy tüntessek igazából ez ellen, hogy Magyarországon legyen egy normális kormány, aki az Európa, tehát az EU felé hajlik, és nem Oroszország felé. És szerintem, hogyha a Fidesz nyer, akkor lesz forradalom. Mégpedig azért, mert a népnek, és főleg a fiatalságnak elege van.
I do not think that we will have such issues like you had at Maidan in Ukraine. I hope the best, that we would not have any casualties to violence and such. So I hope that there will be a peaceful resignation of Fidesz.
It's the evening before the election, and Orban is ready to make his final push to hold on to power. We join his last rally atop Buda Castle, the traditional home of Hungarian royalty. It's actually a lot smaller of a space, so it's physically impossible for more people to get in. They're controlling the entrances. There's a lot of police, there's a lot of media around, but we do see a lot of the loyal. We're going to find out why they think he's still the one and what they're really afraid of if it was to be finally a change of government here in Hungary. Miben konkrétan van a veszély maga szerint, ha jönne például a Tisza párt, mi történne Magyarországgal?
A szuverenitásunk van a legnagyobb veszélyben, tehát nem lennénk önállóak, külső hatalmak irányítanák a Tisza pártot, mert ők nem önállóak, ez egy bábkormány lenne, és azt nem szeretnénk, mint magyarok. Hatalom lehet a Brüsszel, lehet Kyiv, úgyhogy nagyon sok rosszat hallunk.
És mit gondolja, hogy ennek a háborúnak hogyan kéne lenne vége? Mert Oroszország mondja, hogy még többet akar, több területet, el akar menni esetleg megint Kyivig.
Ez nevetséges. Nem akar Oroszország ilyet, én úgy látom. És Oroszország azokon a területeken akar hatalmat, vagyis azokat a területeket megszerezni, ahol ugyanúgy az orosz kisebbséggel nagyon csúnyán bánnak az ukránok.
Before the arrival of Orban, we see Foreign Minister Peter Magyar recently exposed on secret recordings speaking on very friendly terms with Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov.
Emberek, köztük a magyar emberek pénzét is mind elküldjék Ukrajnába a háborús maffia fenntartására. Közben pedig az ukránokat a háborújukkal együtt be akarják hozni az Európai Unióba. Mi mindezt nem hagyjuk, kedves barátaim, egyiket sem!
Then comes Orban himself, defiant, even confident, ready to fire up a crowd of loyalists one more time.
Mindenhol győzni fogunk, tisztelt Hölgyeim és Uraim! Olyan győzelmet aratunk, amellyel mindenkit meglepünk, még talán saját magunkat is. Tudják, hogy ennek a választásnak legfontosabb tétje a béke. Nem adjuk oda a gyerekeinket Ukrajnának, nem adjuk oda a pénzünket, és nem adjuk oda a fegyvereinket. Van még egy fontos dolog ebben a kampányban. Ez pedig az, hogy az Egyesült Államok világossá tette, hogy támogat be. Fontos azért, mert a USA ma a világ legerősebb országa, a NATO katonai erejének több mint 70%-át adják, és ha ilyen barátod van, akkor a biztonságot garantál.
A legfontosabb az lenne, hogy Ukrajnában minél előbb béke legyen, vagy legalábbis tűzszünet. Tehát azt gondoljuk, hogy A ukrán nép megérdemelni, hogy ne öldököljék őket, illetve az oroszok is, tehát hogy két szláv nép teljesen értelmetlenül gyilkolja egymást 4 éve, és ez senki másnak nem érdekel, csak a globális nagytőkének, illetve a nyugat-európai fegyvergyárak.
Mid-interview, it turns out that the man is a Fidesz party candidate, and not just any, but the one in the district I myself will be voting in.
Én azt gondolom, hogy Magyarország Ukrajnával szolidáris. Tehát minden támogatást megadunk az ukrán népnek, de értsék meg, hogy a háború az nem a mi háborunk, mi ebben nem akarunk belekeveredni.
De ha világos, hogy Oroszország az agresszor, akkor nem kéne világos lenni, hogy rájuk kell hatni, nyomást hozni, hogy az agresszor hagyja abba.
Én azt gondolom, hogy ebben Európán belül egyetlen politikus volt, aki ezt megpróbálta, az Orbán Viktor, amikor az Európai Tanácsnak az elnöki posztját töltötte be, akkor 1 héten belül elindította azt a békemissziót, ami azt a célt szolgálta, hogy Ukrajnában minél hamarabb béke legyen.
Then another extraordinary encounter.
Abban 12 éves voltam, és hát eléggé szabadon járkáltam, itt a budai szektorban éltem, és az egész város, az ország reggel úgy indult a forradalom, hogy mentek teherautóval a magyar zászlókkal, ruszkik haza, ment az egész városba.
És akkor értette, hogy miért forradalmaznak, miért harcolnak?
Egyrészt nagyon rossz gazdasági helyzet volt 56-ban, és már megvolt a Írószövetségben egy ilyen nagy ellenállás, politikailag. Az áborsok kegyetlenkedéssel folytán mindenki, tehát ezek a orosz barát emberek voltak, hát végül is egy orosz bábkormány volt itt. Föllázadt a nép, és mindenki ruszkék haza, mert arra várt mindenki, hogy utána megszűjjön ez a Kádár, majd Rákosféle diktatúra.
Tehát a szabadság,
igen,
valamilyen demokráciáért.
Mindenki összefogás volt a szabadságért, a demokráciáért. Igen.
Meg a megszállás ország
És a megszállás ellen.
És hogyan látja, hogy hogyan kéne annak a háborúnak vége lenni?
Bele kell nyugodni, Magyarország is elvesztette az ország nagy részének a 75%-át lakosságával, a területtel együtt. Ők miért nem látják be, hogy így alakult ez a sors, a történelem, igaz, nem igaz, nagyhatalmak, az igazság.
Those I met at the Fidesz rally didn't seem like bad people. But in a storm of fear and propaganda, the deep contradiction of Orban's anti-Ukraine campaign with the moral reality of Russia's war seems lost on them. Election morning has arrived and we are up early.
Jó reggelt!
As Hungary's leader is swarmed by the press, I hope I can slide a question in. I've spent years thinking about what I would ask Orban if I got the chance. In Zelensky's place, would you hand over your territories to Russia?
I'm lucky enough not to be Zelensky.
What will you do just tomorrow?
Akkor most ez egy picit nem visszás.
Miért nem visszás?
Hogy Oroszország mellett teszi a voksát, amikor az amerikaiak
Shocking in some ways to hear this music straight after, but quite appropriate. Can you tell us why you made that choice?
Yeah, well, the stake of the election is really high now here in Hungary. It's about whether we will be getting closer and closer to Russia and the Russian influence, or whether we will stay and be part of the European Union and the European community. That's why we wanted to show the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, that we know about his wrongdoings and his close ties with Russia, and it's unacceptable.
What your reaction was to the tapes with Szijjártó and Lavrov talking to each other like they were friends? Was it surprising at all? Was it still shocking despite what you already knew?
Yeah, there were rumors about it, of course, but it was still shocking to see that, you know, how they talk about interfering with another country's elections like it's nothing. And you know, the government always says that we are a sovereign country and we have to protect our sovereignty, and now it's awful.
Now it's my turn to vote at the local school. Everything looks civilized and orderly as representatives from each party are present in the polling place. The voter turnout, almost 80%, is the highest in Hungary since the fall of communism. For both sides, mobilizing their support bases is the key to victory. Budapest is buzzing in anticipation with just hours before the first results come in. Everyone here chooses to meet their country's fate in their own way. How your election day was and why is it finishing here?
It was really cool. I voted, I met my family. It was very pleasant and I wanted to come here and listen to some good techno music because I'm a techno fan.
What's the most important issue in this round of elections?
One of the core question, should we go east or west?
And this crowd is probably not the crowd who wants to go east, right?
Yes, yes, you're right. But mostly I think this is about the techno, not a party.
Techno first, politics later.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a trendy inner-city music bar, a different crowd gathers.
Biztos, hogy rendszerváltás lesz, mert az fog kiderülni, hogy a belarusz rendszer fele hajlunk el, vagy az európai rendszer felé.
A hangulat, elhinném, hogy nagyon feszült lenne, de itt Pesten a nép inkább bulizna. Ezt hogyan magyarázza el?
Úgy tudom elmagyarázni, hogy úszol a víz alatt, és látod, hogy ott lesz a jégtábla alatt a fény, azt te már látod, hogy ott van, de hogy eléred-e.
Our last stop is the official Tisza Party rally on the riverside. In the metro, the crowd seems pretty sure of victory. We've just arrived at the square here on the Danube River just as the first results are being announced from the actual count in this election. And the results are looking favorable for a Tisza win. The big question is, how big of a win? Will it be a close majority or will it be the 2/3 which this movement has pushed so hard for? So immediately you can see a huge crowd and already honestly a bit of a party atmosphere, but a lot could still change in the next few hours. So far, so good for the opposition. Everything is more or less going to plan. I think people in the crowd at the moment, they're cheering a little bit, but they can't really believe what they're seeing at the moment. Bocsánat, jól értjük, hogy mi történt? Hogy már vége van?
Nincs vége, még csak félúton tart a választás, és akkor a különbség, hogy elméletileg Orbán Viktor gratulált a Magyar Péternek, hogy ne. De még nincs vége.
Régen követitek a kampányt?
Persze, már nagyon régóta, már 16 éve kövessük, úgyhogy igen, ezt szeretnénk, hogy már legyen valami változás.
Mit jelent az országnak ez a pillanat, ez a nap?
Szerintem egy felszabadulás és egy forradalom, meg egy történelem, úgy tudnám leírni, tehát ilyen egyszerűen.
Milyen jövőre vár Magyarország?
A legjobbra, uram, a legjobbra. Reméljük, hogy innen csak fölfele. Úgyhogy reméljük. Már mindenkinek jobb lesz, önöknek is jobb lesz, az ukránoknak is jobb lesz, így de mindenkinek jobb lesz.
As more results come in, it becomes clear. Tisza have won by a landslide. The Orban era is over and Magyar has been given a dominant mandate for change.
Közösen leváltottuk az Orbán rendszert, közösen felszabadítottuk Magyarországot, visszavettük a hazánkat. A magyarok ma nemet mondtak az ámításra, nemet mondtak a hazugságra, nemet mondtak a félrevezetésre, és nemet mondtak az árulásra. A feladat óriási, de mi magyarok szeretjük a nagy feladatokat.
Really hard, honestly, to describe the atmosphere right now, right here. I think over the last few hours, there was just the full gamut of emotions from tension and expectation, then to disbelief, then to realization, then to relief, and then to celebration. And now you can see, of course, especially with this very young crowd, a full street party has begun across the Danube embankment. Now we'll see how long the party goes. Magyar has very clearly said that he wants to clean up Hungary. He wants to clean up the independent institutions that have been corrupted by Fidesz regimes. He wants the country to be in Europe, in NATO, to work out issues with neighbors. He didn't mention Ukraine directly, which wasn't a real surprise, but especially with this two-thirds majority, the hope is now that this incredible bloc, an incredible dead weight on Ukraine's effort to stay alive and gain support from Europe is now going to be freed up. And the battle, the victory that has just gone on here could be as consequential for Ukraine as Kupiansk or Konstantinivka or the places along the front line where I normally report from. Now it's time for Hungary and Hungarians to wake up tomorrow in a new future for their country. But for us, it's time to go back home, across the border, across the Tisa, to Kyiv, to Ukraine, where unfortunately the battles are still far from over. Thank you for joining us on this very meaningful and, for me, very personal journey. Thank you for watching this video. It is now the day after the elections and we're heading home very soon. This was a very unique and very special time and place for me personally to report on, but it was also part of our effort here at the Kyiv Independent to bring you closer to important events, not just in Ukraine, but those in the regions and those that will shape the future of Europe as a whole. As always, everything we do at the Kyiv Independent, whether it's Fidesz or the Frontline, is made possible by our community of paid members who support our work for as low as the price of a cup of coffee every month. If you like what we do and want to help us do it bigger and better, please consider joining us by clicking the link in the description below. Thank you.